before we go on, let's first take a listen to some of the major parts of Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech.
An outstanding success for our party, state and people last year was the accomplishment of the great historic cause of perfecting the national nuclear forces. Our republic has at last come to possess a powerful and reliable war deterrent, which no force and nothing can reverse. We have created a mighty sword for defending peace.
Now, Kim talked about perfecting nuclear forces, a war deterrent, and a mighty sword for defending peace. Tell us more about these terms and phrases.
Well, that's a very interesting phrase because in the early part of his speech, he declared that North Korea has already mastered the nuclear second strike capability, and everywhere in the United States is within the target range of the missile attacks by North Korea.
Right.
And he has a nuclear button on the desk in his office. But at the same time, he also urged the scientists, engineers to perfect the nuclear capability. That means that it's a kind of a slip of tongue or admission that there are still a lot of homeworks to do for North Korea to actually arrive at the ultimate destination, which is the full-fledged nuclear power state.
Now, obviously, this speech is also aimed at domestic audience as well. So what are some of the things that caught your eye in the speech that's directed at perhaps political affairs in North Korea as well as some internal affairs?
Well, I would like to highlight two things. One is that he mentioned that 2017 was an extremely successful year. And he also urged that we have to make the new year, 2018, year of a new success. It is left to a different interpretation what actually the phrase means, the year to achieve a new success. It may mean that the regime will pay more attention to improving the livelihood of the North Korean citizens, or it will double its effort to actually complete the nuclear power capability, or it aims at, initiating bilateral talks with Washington. But we have to wait and see. But that means that the Kim Jong regime is still all in completing the nuclear weapon technology and using it as a bargaining leverage to force and compel Washington to agree on diplomatic talks that is premised upon temporary freezing of North Korea's provocation and program, not denuclearization. And another point is the emphasis on national solidarity between the two Koreas in celebration of Olympic Games. And he urged that we have to resume and open all channels, ruling party, opposition parties, or NGOs, to promote inter-Korean exchange and cooperation. That is a return to the traditional policy towards South Korea to create the division and controversy within the South Korean public in terms of dealing with nuclear North Korea.
All right. Well, what about in the areas of domestic reforms and the economy? Were there any mentions of those in the speech?
Definitely. I mean, it only alluded to increasing pains and needs to tighten the seatbelt by every member of the Republic to endure the pressure imposed by the outsiders. But there is no concrete economic development plan in his speech. That means that North Korea is quite in a desperate situation to get some additional financial assistance in order to assuage the pains created by the economic sanctions. Now, naturally, the alternative target for North Korea happens to be South Korea.
And definitely feeling the pressure from the international community as well.
Definitely.
All right. Well, in response to Kim Jong-un's suggestion of sending a delegation to the Olympic Games, the Moon Jae-in administration was very quick to respond it and welcome it. And in fact, South Korean Unification Minister proposed a high-level government meeting at the truce village of Panmunjom. And today, North Korea reopened the military hotline between the two Koreas for the first time since February of 2016.
Right, when the Park Geun-hye administration suspended the Kaesong Industrial Complex. It's a positive development. I would not deny that, but at the same time, you do not want to make too much out of temporary or small achievements. I guess the Moon Jae-in government's long-term plan is to create a positive bubble, positive atmosphere conducive to more peaceful engagement between the two Koreas. By creating that atmosphere first, it can hope to avert the actual danger of the accidental war between North Korea and other side. And two, by creating this spirit and the mood of the dialogue and engagement, North Korea may enter into some kind of talks with South Korea, and critical issues such as nuclear and the missile development programs or the signing of peace treaty could be also openly discussed in the context of discussing how to accommodate North Korea's participation in the Pyeongchang Olympic Games. But the problem is that if Moon Jae-in government is going to pay too high a price for earning North Korea's accommodation, which would be helpful for successful hosting of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. But instead, it neglected the more important issues, such as denuclearization of North Korea. Then Moon Jae-in government will lose a lot in the context of its security partnership with the United States and its policy to denuclearize North Korea. You have to see things as they are. What North Korea promises is that it will support successful and peaceful hosting of Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games, but the North Korea may demand far more than that in exchange for North Korea remaining without further provocation, such as the resumption of the Kaesong Industrial Complex or the further postponement of the joint military exercise between U.S. forces in South Korea and the Korean military. Then you have to see whether it is worth to buy peace and stability, which would last only 2 months at that price.
Well, definitely a lot to keep our eyes on inter-Korea relations, as well as relations between North Korea and the U.S. in the new year. Thank you so much for coming in today.
You're welcome.